Every night at exactly 9 o'clock, the most feared man in Incheon's underworld sits down on a battered plastic stool at a noodle cart that isn't even supposed to still be there, and orders the same bowl of kalguksu from a 67-year-old woman who has no idea what she's actually looking at. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why he never once told her his real name. Until 3 weeks ago, even he didn't know it. An Yeon-suk had run her cart in Incheon's old Sinpo night market for 31 years. Silver hair pinned in a tight bun, hands permanently creased from hot broth and cold mornings, she was the kind of woman regulars trusted without ever learning much about her. What none of them knew was that Yeon-suk had spent 24 of those years quietly searching for one particular face. 24 years ago, her son Min-jae and his wife ran a small print shop 2 streets from where her cart now stood. They refused to pay protection money to a rising syndicate muscling into the district. One night, the syndicate's men came to collect anyway. Min-jae and his wife didn't survive it. Their 2-year-old son was never found, no body, no trace, nothing but a missing child's report that eventually stopped being followed up. What almost nobody in that syndicate remembered, 24 years later, was why the boy was ever taken alive in the first place. The boss's wife couldn't have children. A living 2-year-old was worth more to her, quietly, than one more small grave. He was renamed, raised inside the organization instead of a family, trained the way you train something you plan to use. Today, they call him Baek Ji-hoon. 26 years old, tall, lean, permanently unreadable dark eyes, a jaw that almost never relaxes, an undercut he keeps severely short. Inside the syndicate, the older men call him something else entirely, the quiet knife, because in 6 years, nobody has ever heard him raise his voice before a job goes wrong for somebody else. Nobody knows why Ji-hoon started eating at a specific cart in the Sinpo market 4 months ago. He'd tell you, if you dared to ask, that it was just convenient to stop on his usual route collecting from stall owners who couldn't afford to say no to men like him. What he wouldn't tell you, because he genuinely couldn't explain it himself, was that something about the smell of that particular broth made his chest go quiet in a way nothing else ever did. Yeon-suk noticed small things about him first. The exact, oddly formal way he held his chopsticks identical, disturbingly identical, to the way her son used to hold his. The way he always sat facing the entrance, shoulders squared, like he'd been trained since childhood to watch a door. She told herself it was nothing. Grief plays tricks like that. It had been 24 years. She'd stopped letting herself hope sometime around year 12. Then, 3 weeks ago, a gust of wind off the harbor pushed his hair back while he counted coins onto her cart's metal counter, and Yeon-suk saw it. A small crescent-shaped birthmark just behind his left ear. The exact same birthmark her son Min-jae had carried his entire life. The exact same one she used to trace with her thumb when he was a baby, half asleep against her shoulder. She didn't say anything that night. She went home, pulled a shoebox out from under her bed, and sat on the floor until sunrise, looking at a photograph she hadn't touched in years. A photograph of a toddler with the same birthmark, the same serious eyes, sitting on his father's shoulders outside a print shop that didn't exist anymore. The next night, when Ji-hoon sat down at his usual stool, Yeon-suk set the photograph down on the counter without a word. He looked at it for a long time, long enough that 2 customers came and left without either of them noticing. When he finally spoke, his voice, the same voice men in his organization had learned to fear, came out barely above a whisper. "Where did you get this?" What happened in the next 10 minutes would unravel 24 years in both directions at once. Everything Ji-hoon had ever been told about where he came from. Everything Yeon-suk had spent a lifetime refusing to stop believing. And a question neither of them was ready for: what do you owe the family who raised you, when they're the same people who took you from the one you actually belonged to? That question is still being answered. 3 weeks after that night, Baek Ji-hoon still shows up at 9 o'clock. He still sits on the same stool. But the men who used to send him to collect from that particular stretch of the market have noticed something strange. Nobody's been asking An Yeon-suk for protection money in almost a month, and not one of them has been brave enough to ask why. If a story like this one gets under your skin the way it should, that's your cue to hit like, drop a comment on what you think happens when his organization finally figures out who he's really protecting, and subscribe so you don't miss where this one goes next. Some family isn't the one that raises you. Some of it is just waiting for you to walk back through the right door.